The gleaming marble floors of Sterling Enterprises reflected the soft glow of after-hours lighting as Marcus Chun guided his cleaning cart down the 40th floor hallway. His methodical movement spoke of years of practiced efficiency, each motion deliberate and quiet. The building had settled into its evening rhythm, corporate warriors replaced by the invisible army of night shift workers who maintained the gleaming facade of success. Marcus paused outside the corner office, noting the lights still burning beneath the frosted glass door marked Victoria Sterling, Chief Executive Officer. He had learned her schedule over the past 8 months, knew she rarely left before 10, sometimes 11 on nights when a board demanded answers or quarterly projections needed massaging. He knocked twice, soft but audible, and heard her crisp voice call out permission to enter. Victoria sat behind her imposing desk, fingers flying across her laptop keyboard, barely glancing up as he entered with his supplies. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, designer suit still perfectly pressed despite the long day. The office smelled of expensive coffee and the faint trace of her perfume. Marcus worked efficiently around her, emptying the wastebasket, wiping down surfaces, his presence as unobtrusive as a ghost. This was how he preferred it, invisible and unnoticed, just another cog in the vast machine of corporate infrastructure. 20 floors below, his daughter Emma was finishing her homework in the building's childcare center, waiting for Daddy to finish work so they could walk home together through the city streets. The thought of her smile gave purpose to every mundane task, every ignored interaction with the executives who saw through him as if he were made of glass. Victoria finally closed her laptop with a sharp click, the weight of another 18-hour day settling into her shoulders. The quarterly reports could wait until morning, though she knew sleep would elude her as usual. She gathered her briefcase and headed for the elevator, heels clicking against the polished floor with authoritative precision. The elevator doors slid open just as Marcus emerged from the supply closet, wheeling his cart toward the service area. Victoria stepped inside without acknowledgement, her fingers already reaching for her phone to check the evening's accumulated messages. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then pushed his cart aside and followed her into the elevator, positioning himself respectfully in the corner. Before we dive deeper into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe power outages like this are common where you live. The elevator began its smooth descent, floors ticking by in comfortable silence. Victoria scrolled through emails while Marcus stood quietly, hands clasped behind his back in a posture that spoke of ingrained discipline. The building's hum surrounded them, a familiar soundtrack of ventilation systems and distant machinery. Then the lights flickered once, twice, and died completely. The elevator lurched to a halt with a mechanical groan that echoed through the shaft. Emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow, transforming the confined space into something alien and unsettling. Victoria's phone screen provided the only other illumination as she looked up sharply, her composed facade cracking slightly. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken tension and the sudden realization that they were trapped together, executive and janitor, in a space no larger than a closet. Victoria's fingers tightened around her phone as she jabbed at the screen, trying to find a signal in the metal cage that had become their prison. The emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across her face, revealing cracks in her usual composure. "You need to call security immediately," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to instant obedience. "There has to be an emergency phone in here somewhere." Marcus moved with calm deliberation to the control panel, his fingers locating the emergency communication button with practiced ease. His movements were methodical, controlled, as if power outages and mechanical failures were merely puzzles to be solved rather than crises to fear. "Building security, this is emergency line 7, came the crackling response through the intercom speaker. "This is Victoria Sterling. We're trapped in elevator bank A, somewhere between floors 38 and 39. What's the status of the power situation?" "Ma'am, we're experiencing a building-wide electrical failure. Backup generators should restore elevator service within the hour. Please remain calm and wait for assistance." "An hour," Victoria muttered, pacing the small space like a caged executive. "I have a conference call with Tokyo in 45 minutes. Marcus observed her mounting frustration with quiet attention, his eyes systematically checking the elevator's structural integrity, noting the slight vibration in the cables, the barely perceptible shift in the car's position. His military training whispered warnings that civilian emergencies often masked larger threats, but he kept these thoughts to himself, maintaining his role as the invisible janitor. 2 weeks later, Sarah returned to the park with a proposal that had kept her awake for nights. Emma ran ahead to check on her friendship flowers, chattering excitedly to Tyler about the new buds that were forming. Marcus was pruning the rose bushes when Sarah approached, her business confidence tempered with genuine respect. "I've been thinking about what you said regarding children needing to feel safe before they can heal," she began. "My company's foundation is looking for someone to develop child therapy programs." Marcus looked up from his work, surprised by the unexpected offer. Sarah continued, her voice gaining momentum. "We could reach hundreds of children who need exactly what you gave, Emma. Your approach, your understanding of trauma, it's exactly what's missing from traditional therapy." Emma bounded over, her voice bright as she showed them a butterfly that had landed on her cosmos. "Look, Marcus," she said excitedly. "The flowers really do attract butterflies like you promised." Her transformation was complete, the silent, withdrawn child replaced by someone eager to share her discoveries. Marcus smiled, watching the little girl who had taught him as much about healing as he had taught her. "Sometimes the best therapy happens in gardens instead of offices," he said quietly. Sarah nodded, understanding that she was offering him more than a job, but a chance to share his gift with children who desperately needed his patient wisdom. If this story moved you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever witnessed someone with hidden talents helping others in unexpected ways? The friendship flowers bloomed in brilliant colors, proof that with proper care, beautiful things could grow from the smallest seeds of hope. The sounds began as distant echoes filtering through the building's ventilation system. Shouts, running footsteps, the unmistakable crack of something breaking. Victoria pressed herself against the elevator wall, her breathing shallow and rapid. Marcus moved to stand between her and the elevator doors, his posture transforming from humble janitor to something altogether more formidable. His shoulders squared, his stance widened slightly, hands loose at his sides in a ready position that spoke of muscle memory and training. "Who are you?" Victoria whispered, her voice barely audible above the building's mechanical groans. "You're not just a janitor, are you?" Marcus glanced back at her, conflict playing across his features. "Ma'am, I clean these floors every night. I know every exit, every security checkpoint, every blind spot in the surveillance system. Right now, that knowledge might be the only thing standing between us and whatever's happening out there." The elevator shuddered slightly, and Marcus immediately placed his palm against the wall, feeling for vibrations that might indicate structural stress or external interference. His movements were economical, precise, each gesture serving a tactical purpose. "I was military," he admitted quietly, his eyes never leaving the doors. "Left the service 3 years ago when my wife died. Emma needed stability, needed me home every night instead of deployed halfway around the world." Victoria stared at him, seeing past the janitor's uniform to the man beneath. The way he carried himself, the calm competence in crisis, the protective instincts that had kicked in without hesitation. How had she been so blind? The metallic grinding sound above their heads made both of them look up sharply. Someone was forcing open the elevator shaft doors on the floor above them, the screech of metal against metal echoing through the confined space like fingernails on a chalkboard. Marcus moved with sudden purpose, pulling his maintenance key ring from his belt. He selected a small multi-tool, quickly removing the emergency lighting panel and extracting 2 thin metal strips. Victoria watched in fascination as his hands worked with surgical precision, transforming mundane janitor's equipment into something more purposeful. "Stay behind me and keep quiet," he instructed, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to life-or-death decisions. His entire bearing had changed, the deferential janitor completely replaced by a tactical professional assessing threats and formulating responses. Heavy footsteps echoed from the shaft above, accompanied by harsh whispers in a language Victoria couldn't identify. Marcus positioned himself at an angle to the doors, using his knowledge of the building's elevator mechanics to predict exactly where the intruders would appear. He reached into his cleaning cart, pulling out what appeared to be ordinary maintenance spray, but Victoria noticed how he handled it like a weapon, testing its weight and balance. Every tool in his possession had suddenly acquired tactical significance, ordinary objects transformed by expertise into instruments of defense. The footsteps stopped directly above them. Marcus held up one finger, signaling absolute silence, his other hand gripping the improvised weapon. Victoria pressed herself against the far corner, finally understanding that the humble man she had ignored for months was perhaps the only thing standing between her and whatever nightmare had invaded her carefully controlled world. As Marcus prepared his improvised defenses, fragments of his past emerged through his actions. The way he checked sight lines and calculated angles spoke of years spent in hostile territories where split-second decisions meant the difference between coming home and becoming a casualty statistic. Special forces, he explained quietly, keeping his eyes trained on the ceiling. 12 years active duty, most of it in places that don't exist on official maps. When Sarah got sick, I took early retirement to be with her. After she died, Emma was all I had left. Victoria watched him work, seeing the contradiction between his humble uniform and the deadly competence in his movements. He wedged maintenance tools into the door mechanism, creating additional barriers while explaining his reasoning in calm, measured tones. These elevators have manual override systems that most people don't know about, he continued, showing her how he had disabled certain functions. I've studied every security protocol in this building, not because I plan to need them, but because keeping people safe has become second nature. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, turning cleaning supplies into early warning systems, using his intimate knowledge of the building's maintenance areas to create tactical advantages. Every action demonstrated years of training that had never truly left him, muscle memory that transcended his current civilian role. Emma thinks I'm a superhero, he said with a sad smile, securing the final improvised barrier. I never wanted her to know how close to the truth she was. Some secrets are meant to protect the people we love most. Above them, the intruders had found the elevator shaft access, their voices growing closer with each passing second. The elevator ceiling panel exploded inward with a crash of splintering metal. A rope dropped through the opening, followed immediately by a black-clad figure rappelling down with military precision. Marcus moved like lightning, his improvised weapon striking with surgical accuracy at pressure points that dropped the intruder instantly. Victoria pressed herself against the wall, watching in stunned silence as the humble janitor she had barely acknowledged became a force of controlled violence. His movements were fluid, economical, each strike calculated for maximum effectiveness with minimal energy expenditure. A second intruder dropped through the opening, but Marcus was ready. Using the confined space to his advantage, he employed techniques that turned the elevator's limitations into tactical benefits. The narrow walls became leverage points, the low ceiling prevented wide swings, forcing close-quarters combat where his training gave him overwhelming advantage. Stay down, he commanded Victoria, his voice steady despite the physical exertion. His cleaning cart became a shield, its contents transformed into weapons of opportunity. Industrial cleaners became blinding agents. Mop handles became striking implements. Every tool serving dual purpose in hands trained for improvisation. The third intruder hesitated at the opening, speaking rapidly into a radio headset. Marcus used the momentary pause to secure the unconscious attackers with electrical cable from his maintenance kit, his movement suggesting this was far from his first hostile encounter. Victoria stared at this transformation, seeing past years of invisibility to recognize the warrior who had been protecting her building every night without fanfare or recognition. The quiet janitor had become her shield against chaos, his humble service masking capabilities that could save her life. Marcus listened intently to the radio chatter from the unconscious intruders, his expression growing increasingly grim. The voices spoke of additional teams, extraction timelines, and most concerning, references to other hostages in the building. We can't stay here, he told Victoria, checking his makeshift weapons with professional efficiency. They'll send more people, better equipped. Our advantage was surprise, and that's gone now. He helped Victoria to her feet, noting how she looked at him with a mixture of awe and confusion. Using his master key, he accessed the elevator's emergency maintenance panel and manually engaged the door release mechanism. The doors opened onto a darkened hallway that Marcus knew better than his own apartment. These maintenance corridors were his domain, pathways invisible to executives but crucial for the building's daily operations. "Follow my lead and step exactly where I step," he instructed, leading her into the maze of service passages that honeycombed the building's infrastructure. His knowledge of every pipe, every electrical conduit, every hidden access became their lifeline. Victoria struggled to keep pace in her heels, watching as Marcus navigated the darkness with the confidence of someone who had spent months learning every inch of this territory. He moved like a ghost through familiar terrain, using employee passages and utility areas that bypassed main corridors. Behind them, shouts echoed from the elevator shaft as the intruders discovered their unconscious colleagues. Marcus increased their pace, his protective instincts driving him forward through the building he had cleaned and maintained, now transformed into a battlefield where his dual nature as janitor and soldier finally served the same purpose. Marcus led Victoria through a final service door into the building's security command center, where Jake Morrison hunched over multiple monitors displaying chaos throughout the building. The head of security looked up as they entered, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and complete shock. "Marcus Chun?" Jake stood slowly, his voice filled with disbelief. "What the hell are you doing in a janitor's uniform?" Victoria looked between the two men, seeing recognition and respect flash across Jake's features as he processed the impossible sight before him. "You two know each other?" she asked, still struggling to understand the layers of deception that had surrounded her for months. "Know each other?" Jake laughed grimly. "Lady, you've been protected by one of the most decorated Special Forces operatives in recent military history. Marcus Chun, Silver Star recipient, led some of the most classified missions our country ever ran." Marcus moved to the security monitors, his trained eyes quickly assessing the tactical situation throughout the building. The intruders had spread to multiple floors, but their movements suggested a coordinated operation with specific objectives. "Jake, I need building schematics and current personnel locations," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. His transformation was complete now, no trace of the humble janitor remaining. "Sir," Jake responded automatically, the military hierarchy reasserting itself despite years of civilian life. He pulled up the requested information, deferring to Marcus's expertise without question. Victoria watched this exchange with growing amazement, finally understanding that the man she had barely acknowledged possessed skills and experience that could save everyone in the building. Her invisible protector had been hiding in plain sight. Marcus studied the building schematics with tactical precision, his finger tracing pathways that only someone with his unique combination of military training and intimate building knowledge could identify. The intruders had made a critical error by underestimating the building's maintenance staff. "They're after the server room, but they don't know about the backup power grid I helped install last month," he explained to Jake, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "We could trap them in a controlled environment and cut off their escape routes." Using his master access codes and knowledge of every service tunnel, Marcus coordinated a response that turned his months of invisible labor into a tactical advantage. He guided security teams through maintenance passages, positioning them at strategic choke points while avoiding the intruders' anticipated routes. Victoria watched him work, seeing leadership qualities that had been hidden beneath his humble exterior. This was the man who had earned commendations in foreign battlefields, now applying those same skills to protect her building and everyone in it. The confrontation came swift and decisive. Marcus used the building's own infrastructure as a weapon, shutting down elevators to limit movement, controlling lighting to create tactical advantages, and employing his intimate knowledge of every floor to outmaneuver professionally trained criminals. When police arrived, they found the intruders secured and waiting, victims of a perfectly executed defensive operation led by a man they assumed was simply part of the cleaning crew. Marcus stood quietly in the background as authorities took control, ready to fade back into invisibility. But Victoria Sterling had seen too much to let him disappear again into the shadows of her corporate world. 3 weeks later, Marcus sat in Victoria's office wearing a tailored suit instead of his janitor's uniform, reviewing security protocols as Sterling Enterprises' new director of corporate security. The transformation was complete, but the quiet dignity remained unchanged. Emma had adjusted to their new life with the resilience of childhood, proud that Daddy's job now matched the superhero stories she had always believed about him. She attended the company's family day, beaming as Victoria introduced her father to the board as the man who had saved the building. During the school's career presentation that afternoon, Emma stood confidently before her classmates, no longer needing to imagine her father's heroism. She spoke of courage that came not from seeking recognition, but from protecting others without expecting anything in return. Victoria watched from the back of the classroom, remembering how completely she had misjudged the man who had worked invisibly around her for months. She had learned that true worth often wore humble uniforms and spoke in quiet voices, that heroes sometimes pushed cleaning carts and emptied wastebaskets while guarding the people they served. Marcus caught her eye and smiled, the same gentle expression he had worn as a janitor, unchanged by recognition or elevation. Emma finished her presentation with a drawing of her daddy, not as a soldier or security director, but as the man who came home every night to help with homework and read bedtime stories. If this story moved you, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, or if you've ever discovered someone's hidden talents when you least expected it. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone to truly see them.